First of all, to the prosecuting attorney, we said we were not going to direct any questions directly to a candidate, so I'm going to reword the question a little bit to both candidates. What is the explanation for the testing of marijuana for the county at the price of $78,000, I believe?
You start?
Yes.
I have the privilege of being an appointee of the governor to the Forensic Council. We meet once a month, and we tour all of the crime labs in the state of Washington. When this law was originally passed, the definition was really screwy. It made it so that we had to test for a concentration within the marijuana. So you might have things that would get you high, blood leaves, but it didn't mean that you had marijuana. And the testing that our chemists had to do was $70,000 a sample. And it was not something that I or my fellow prosecutors felt that it was a reasonable expense that we were going to take. So until that was fixed, we opted not to test that, and we dismissed a lot of cases. We have a very active WAPA, Washington Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. We actually have a lobbyist that works for us. It's not so much a political agenda, but things that make it easier for us to prosecute the laws that are passed by our legislators. And so they acted very quickly. I think it's the quickest fix they've had to a law that was passed midterm. They were able to tinker with the definition a little bit so that we were able to test. We now have it down to, I believe, $300 a sample. But it's still very difficult because you're testing the amount of THC and you have to break down the elements of the marijuana. Before, it was easy. You had a little liquid, you put the pot in it, you shook it up, if it turned green, you had marijuana. Right now, it's a very complex procedure, especially as we move into edibles.
Well, I think that the figure $70,000 was nonsense put out by defense attorneys for negotiation purposes with prosecutors. There was no judge that ever upheld that such non-existent tests were necessary. This is a phantom issue. There was a potential issue the legislature fixed very quickly. That's no excuse for dismissing felony cases. Thank you.
For the candidates and prosecuting attorney, what role should staff members working for the prosecuting attorney's office play in the election process? Go ahead and choose.
Well, I guess I can start with my office. There's been an attempt for many individuals. I think my last election was a contested heated election. It was a different candidate. He was an experienced trial lawyer. He had a lot of friends and acquaintances, families, roots in the area. There were a lot of people that supported him. And some of those people are, I think, supporting my opponent just because of there's some allegiances that went that way. And one of the things that they're trying to do is say, we like your office, it just has nothing to do with you. When I took over, the office was completely revamped. All of the staff that came in is mine, hired by me, trained by me, my policies, my procedures. My opponent and individuals with him went to my two senior deputies and said, hey, just stay out of it, don't support Lori, and we like you, you're doing well, go with it. And I had a talk with all of the people in the office. I made it very clear that you don't have to engage in politics. I understand jobs are scarce, times are hard, and people need an income. Each individual in my office, some of them chose to engage in this election for personal reasons because they care about the community. And my senior prosecutors are very supportive, and their response was to talk to some of the people and say, hey, what is it about my boss that you don't like? And this was done before they even told me about it. And the responses were, we don't like her because she's just, there's something about her we don't trust her. So they asked, what is it you don't like? They couldn't come up with anything. The prosecutors themselves that are prosecuting the felonies, they like the job they're doing. They like what's happening in my office. But my job isn't to be popular. My job isn't to be liked. It's to make hard decisions that are right for our county. And sometimes there's consequences to that. We've also had to make some really tough decisions with deputies. In the big counties, we have things that are big cities. You see on TV where there's internal affairs, IA, they regulate the conduct of your officers. In little counties, we don't have that. So it's been up to me, and I take responsibility for everything that happens in my office. We've had officers that were accused of molesting their children. We've had officers that lied on search warrants. So, thank you.
Mr. Grinnell, would you like to comment?
You heard false assertion. I never had such a conversation with her deputies. It's simply false to state that. Honesty, I think, is essential for the job of the prosecutor. Honesty in the statements that you make, the way you handle yourself, the staff that you surround yourself with. The question is, what role or do you think it's appropriate for the staff to have? It's a free country. They can take any role in the political process they want, as long as they're not using county time and county resources, such as designing flyers on county computers and such, to aid a political candidate. It's a free country. They can support who they want, as long as they're not using county time and resources.
For the prosecuting attorneys, are there any instances where you think outsourcing legal work is beneficial to the county and worth the extra cost of investment?
Yes, I do. We have some complicated issues in our county. Land use specifically, they're very narrow areas of law where it's important that we have the best, well-trained people to do those. Some things, if we keep a strong civil department, we can learn and handle them in-house. One of the issues that we will be outsourcing, again, is the tax appeal for the wind turbines. We need very specialized expertise, and in those situations, it's important that we do have the best representation possible. And it's impossible to do that in a general practice area.
Well, I certainly agree with that. The field of law is incredibly specialized nowadays, that there are many issues that come to the prosecutor's office that a general practitioner will possibly, after research, give a limited opinion on. But frankly, you get what you pay for sometimes, and the specialization in the legal field has been a phenomenon that's occurred over the last 30, 40 years, and you can have a long conversation about the effects of that and whether it's good or bad. But the reality is that some work will be outsourced. And one of the principal reasons I left the prosecutor's office in 2008 was a dissatisfaction with the amount of outsourced work. That's why I supported Ms. Hocker in the last election and strongly encouraged her to make an issue out of that. It was wrong to outsource, to pay $50,000 plus for someone to do the work of the senior senior deputy prosecuting attorney. It was silly. And to outsource the appeal work. That was denying an opportunity for the in-house attorneys to hone their skills and appear before the appellate courts and to get better. It was a poor practice that needed to stop, but it's picking the low-hanging fruit and feeling that you deserve the Nobel Prize. It was an outrageous practice that was ended and should have ended and will not continue under my watch. Thank you.
Mr. Cannell, if you would continue, if you are elected a prosecuting attorney, will you prosecute gun ownership transfers under 594, which are currently legal?
An officer of the executive branch who takes upon himself to ignore the laws of the state is desecrating the Constitution and ignoring the separation of powers. It is not the role of law enforcement officials, including the prosecutor, to dictate what the law is. That is the role of the legislature. And sometimes you have to close your nose and seek and prosecute actions in which you disagree with. You simply do not have the discretion, I believe, under our Constitution and the separation of powers to make that decision yourself, which has been occurring. We have a current office that believed for 3 years that if you drove on a suspended license that you automatically deserve a dismissal with no follow-up and no refiling, even in cases in which the individual is charged with a DUI. That's an abuse of discretion. When the marijuana law passed, which it was not approved in Clickdat County, the incumbent took it upon herself to simply dismiss all the marijuana cases and told the newspaper in the Hood River News, in which they had a funny title called The Greening of Clickdat County, that, well, this is the will of the people. The law is the law. it's on the books, and until it's changed by the legislature, it's the duty of the prosecutor to enforce it.
Right.
This law that we're talking about would make it the strictest law in the nation when it comes to transfers. The county prosecutor is charged, we have discretion, like officers have discretion. We have prosecutorial immunity and we have discretion, and I will not prosecute those transfers. I do not believe that, I believe the people elect me to represent those values, and I do not believe that if I'm in a field and my husband passes me his gun, that we're going to prosecute that as a criminal act. I think we have scarce resources, we need to focus those resources, and this piece of legislation is not something that I support.
I think that's it for the prosecutors. If you would like to take a seat, we'll move on to the